He laughed at the janitor's old violin. But when his daughter played it, the truth left everyone speechless. In a small Boston school, a wealthy businessman mocked a janitor's dusty violin, thinking it was worthless. But one unexpected moment changed everything, revealing a story of hidden talent, forgotten dreams, and the power of music to heal hearts. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that prove every soul holds a song worth hearing. It was a chilly morning in Boston. The halls of Lincoln High School buzzed with chatter and footsteps as students rushed to their classes. Amid the chaos, Mr. Robert Harris moved quietly, mop in hand, near the music room. At 52, his gray hair and worn uniform blended him into the background. His face carried the stillness of a man who had seen both beauty and loss. The calluses on his hands were the map of a life built on labor, yet inside him lived a melody that refused to die. Every night, when the building emptied and silence filled the air, Robert would open his old locker, pull out a battered violin, and let his heart speak again. The notes that filled the empty auditorium were not perfect, but they were honest, fragile, aching, alive. His music told the story of dreams once alive, of love lost too soon, of a man who once believed he'd stand beneath bright lights, bow in hand, playing for the world. Decades ago, Robert had been a rising violinist, but when his wife fell ill and medical bills swallowed their savings, he traded concert halls for cleaning supplies. The stage lights dimmed, replaced by the flicker of fluorescent bulbs over waxed floors. Still, he never let go of the violin. It was the last piece of the life he once knew. One gray afternoon, the principal, Mr. Douglas, walked the corridors with his daughter Lily, a quiet 10-year-old with eyes too sad for her age. They had recently moved after losing Lily's mother, hoping a change of scenery would help her heal. As they passed the music room, a soft, trembling melody drifted out, the kind that wraps around your heart before you realize you're listening. Lily stopped mid-step. "Dad, what's that sound?" she whispered. Douglas frowned, clearly annoyed. "Probably the janitor again," he muttered. "He keeps bringing that old violin, thinks he's some kind of musician." But Lily didn't move. Through the small window in the door, she saw Robert playing, his eyes closed, lost in a world of his own. The violin looked as if it had survived 100 storms, scratched, chipped, its strings dulled by time. Yet the music shimmered like light through broken glass. For the first time in months, Lily felt something stir inside her. Not sadness, but wonder. That night, the sound of that violin stayed with her like a whisper she couldn't forget. The next afternoon, while the cafeteria was nearly empty, she found Robert sitting alone, repairing one of the violin strings. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Your violin," she said softly. "Can you teach me to play like that?" Robert looked up, surprised but touched. "Like that?" He smiled faintly. "It's not about playing like me. It's about feeling something worth playing for." Lily nodded, though she didn't fully understand. She only knew that the sound of his violin made her feel close to her mother again. After that day, Lily began staying after school. Robert showed her how to hold the bow, how to breathe with the rhythm, how to listen instead of rush. Their lessons were simple, sometimes just scales, sometimes silence. But in that quiet connection, something beautiful grew. Lily laughed again, and Robert, who had long accepted his life as a forgotten man, began to feel alive. For both of them, music became a bridge between grief and hope, between what was lost and what could still be found. But not everyone saw it that way. When Mr. Douglas discovered the lessons, his patience snapped. "Lily, you don't need lessons from a janitor," he barked. "Dad, he's not just a janitor," she cried, clutching her small violin. "He plays with his heart." Douglas's voice rose, sharp with pride and frustration. "That violin is worthless junk, Lily. Don't waste your time." The words cut deeper than he realized. Lily looked at him, her voice small but steady. "You only think it's worthless because you don't know how to listen." That night, Robert heard the argument from the hallway. He stood quietly, hidden in the shadows, his hands gripping the handle of his mop. Her words echoed in his chest like a forgotten song. "You don't know how to listen." He felt no anger toward Douglas, only sadness. Sadness for how the world had learned to measure worth by titles and money, not by the quiet beauty that lived in broken things. He looked down at his violin, its faded wood reflecting the dim light, and smiled. Maybe, just maybe, this little girl had reminded him, and perhaps the world, that even the forgotten still have a song worth hearing. Months passed after that unforgettable night. The school buzzed with talk about the janitor who changed everything. Robert still mopped the floors in the mornings, but his evenings were now filled with music lessons, laughter, and hope. Students gathered around him in the music room, eager to learn not just how to play, but how to feel. Lily was always there, his brightest student, his quiet companion in melodies. Together, they turned broken strings and old violins into symphonies that echoed through the halls of Lincoln High. Douglas often stopped by after work, watching through the glass window. He no longer saw a janitor. He saw a man who had restored his daughter's spirit. Sometimes he'd step in and listen, leaning quietly against the wall as Lily played. The guilt he once carried began to fade, replaced by deep respect. One evening, he brought Robert a small box. Inside was a new violin, carved with precision, polished to perfection. "You've given us more than you know," Douglas said. "Consider this a thank you." Robert smiled, eyes glistening. "The old one taught us enough." Under Robert's guidance, Lincoln High transformed. The music club that was once forgotten became the soul of the school. Competitions were won, scholarships offered, and every performance carried a touch of the same emotion that had first stunned the audience that night. Robert never took credit. He always said, "I just reminded them that music doesn't come from talent. It comes from truth." His humble words became a quiet mantra among the students who adored him. Years rolled by, and Lily's name began appearing in newspapers and concert posters. Her performances were described as hauntingly beautiful, pure emotion, a soul speaking through strings. Yet, no matter how grand the stage or how bright the spotlight, she never forgot where it began. In a dimly lit hallway, beside a janitor's mop and an old violin, before every concert, she would whisper the same silent prayer, "For Mr. Harris." It was her secret way of keeping his spirit with her on stage. One winter evening, Robert received a letter. It was from Lily. She had been invited to perform at Carnegie Hall, her lifelong dream. The invitation wasn't just for him to attend. It was for him to sit in the front row as her honored guest. For a moment, Robert just stared at the paper, his rough hands trembling. He had once played to empty hallways. Now someone he taught would play before the world. It was the kind of full-circle moment he had never dared to imagine. When the night came, New York shimmered with lights. The grand hall was filled with hundreds of people, each waiting to hear the young violinist who had taken the world by storm. Robert sat quietly in the front, dressed in a simple suit, the same violin pin on his collar. When Lily stepped onto the stage, their eyes met. No words, just a shared smile that carried years of unspoken gratitude. Then she began to play, and as the music rose, so did every memory they had built together. Each note told a story, not of fame or fortune, but of faith and resilience. It spoke of a man who believed that broken things still had music left in them. The crowd listened in awe, unaware that the melody carried traces of a janitor's hands and a young girl's courage. When the final note faded, the hall erupted into applause that shook the room. Lily lowered her bow, took a deep breath, and said softly into the microphone, "This performance is dedicated to Mr. Robert Harris, the man who taught me to hear the soul behind every note." The audience rose to their feet. Some clapped, some wiped their eyes, but Robert just sat there overwhelmed. He had never felt rich, yet in that moment he knew he was wealthier than most, not in money, but in meaning. After the concert, Lily found him backstage. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You said one day I'd play for the world." Robert chuckled softly. "And you did, child. You played for it, not just to it." His voice cracked, but his smile was steady. "Your mother would be proud." In the years that followed, Lily's career soared, but her heart remained grounded in gratitude. She often visited Lincoln High, where a small music room now bore a plaque that read, "The Robert Harris Studio, where broken strings found their song." Robert continued teaching until his last days, his life a quiet testimony that greatness often hides in the most ordinary corners. When he passed, the entire school gathered for a memorial concert, every student playing a piece he had once taught. The hall overflowed with music, his music, living on through them. And years later, when Lily stood once again at Carnegie Hall, this time as a celebrated musician, she carried his old violin on stage. The lights dimmed, the audience hushed, and as her bow touched the strings, it was as if Robert himself was there, smiling through the sound.